Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Stardom Road podcast here on the Count Out Podcast Network or YouTube. You may be watching us over on YouTube. I'm your host, as always, Scott Edwards, and with me today is my co-host, Trent, fresh off a trip from Japan. A little under the weather, but you know what? We make sure to get these podcasts out. Are we recording this literally hours before it's due? Yes. Is that more on brand for what we have done in the past? Yes. This is like the first time recording in well over a month. So, Trent, how are you?
Yeah, do not adjust your audio settings. It's not funky. That's just the sound of my voice right now. I had a very good and successful trip to Japan. It has unfortunately extracted a toll on me, and that is in the form of being sick. So, my apologies if I sound a bit dodgy. If I know I sound a bit dodgy, but I'm hopped up on meds. I've got my aloe vera drink to help me with my throat, and I will soldier through to the best of my abilities today.
This is the Jordan flu game of your career. You know, like this
Yeah.
is this is a big game, and today we have a very special episode. It's not because we couldn't think of a topic, it's because we couldn't really watch anything,
Mm,
truthfully. You know,
mm,
Trent's coming back from Japan. I didn't want to make him watch anything because there wasn't really time to do
no.
so. So we're gonna do a Q&A here
Mm,
today. Special Q&A, and we got a lot of questions loaded up about the past, present, and future of Stardom. So a little bit of everything here on the Stardom Road podcast. But we do have one question right off the bat that I want to just start off with because I did have planned, just having a conversation about your trip to Japan, but we got a
mm.
question about your trip to
Ooh.
Japan. So it works in good order here. Um, well, how was your trip?
That was the question. It
That's
was a
my
very
question. I actually had a
well. There
question
we go.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a very good trip. This one, like, there was a nice mix of pro wrestling and going and doing other things. Which is whenever I do go to Japan, I always try and I don't want to make it just the pro wrestling trip as much as I enjoy going to those shows. Like Japan is such a fantastic country to go and explore, and if I only limit myself to going to shows, that limits what I can actually go and do. So I sort of went for a few shows, and then I traveled to Matsumoto, which is an absolutely fantastic little city, one of the most beautiful castles I've seen in person. Then moved up to Takayama, Shirakawa-go, which for someone who doesn't see snow usually was just phenomenal because it was just bucketing down, the equivalent of snow bucketing down. Was fantastic. It's probably why I sound like this in hindsight. Hashtag worth it. And then, yeah, finished off with a couple more shows. So, sort of, yeah, a nice trip of wrestling, bookending, just exploring one of the greatest countries in the world.
Well, that's lovely to hear. I'm happy you had a good trip.
Hmm.
I will follow the question here with just a special question, but the question was asked by String Six Splash. You can check out their wonderful YouTube channel. They talk about Stardom, so I always recommend going to check that out. Different look, short videos, nothing too
Mm.
long. I always think that's a good way to take in
Nothing
some
too long. We don't know
good
anything about that.
yeah, no, never, never. Anyways, based on your time in Japan, what would you say are some of the must-see promotions, venues, and wrestlers there when you go over?
I look. This is a Stardom podcast, so is it cheating to say Stardom a little bit? But also, it's necessary to say Stardom because at the end of the day, you should go check out Stardom while you're in Japan if you get that opportunity. I'm also incredibly biased, and this answer won't shock Scott at all. But I do think if you are in Japan, specifically Tokyo, you should go out of your way to check out Choco Pro. Um, the main reason is you can go to all types of wrestling, be it in America, Mexico, England, Japan. You won't get an experience like Choco Pro because you are right there in the you are the ropes for their quote unquote ring. You get to experience the reality of wrestling in the sense of there's no hiding the moves. They hit, you see. If they don't hit, you see. So they kind of have to perform knowing that. And at the end of it all, after they put on a fantastic show, and it's always more enjoyable in person. I've been a couple of times now. It's always more enjoyable in person. But after the show, there is no promotion that is more accessible to a fan. when you're at the show afterwards, you can chat with all the wrestlers, even if you don't necessarily buy like the checkies and the merch. Like they will still talk to you and hang out with you, and like you feel a lot closer to them than you would at a typical show. Like if you go to Stardom, you're not talking to the talent afterwards. You know, you're not doing meet and greets typically, unless maybe you're going to Spark in April. But that's kind of its own speciality. So yeah, those two promotions. But I would also say, take the punt. Go to a wrestling promotion that you may not normally look at or consider, and just give it a whirl, because it is a lot of fun. And typically, I've gone to a few shows where I'm not exactly like big fan of the product beforehand. I've never left going, oh, I wasted my time and money doing that. This trip I went to
You didn't
PPP.
feel like that after the anniversary show of New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Well, a little different because I knew what I was getting into. Yeah, I knew. I looked at the card and gone, "Oh, this is a mistake," and I went anyways. But something like PPP Tokyo, which I knew a couple of the wrestlers performing, and obviously Saida Wrestling there was a big up into going. But like I went to that show not really knowing what to expect, being a little worried about what I might encounter at that show. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun at it. So if you're going to Japan, especially for enough time where you can be going to a lot of shows, roll the dice on a show. You know, if it's just like promotion you don't follow much, like if you haven't really watched Ice Ribbon, they're putting on a show, maybe go and see them. Maybe Noah's running a show you'd be interested in seeing. Like, there's a lot of different fun things to do, especially if you're ticking off venues. You know, Kurikan Hall, go to a show. I don't care if it's a promotion you've not seen before. Get yourself to Kurikan Hall at least once when you're in Japan. It is a special venue, especially if the rumors are true and it may not be around for that much longer, with talks of Tokyo Dome getting pulled down and moving to a different venue, and Tanahashi opening up the Inoki Arena. Kurikan Hall may not be around much longer, so go and check it out. Ichigai Square, obviously, for Choco Pro, and honestly, Shinkiba First Ring is a really cool venue. A lot of promotions run there, especially Joshi ones. It's just the vibes are really nice. It's a little bit out of the way, but it's just, it feels different than a lot of other places I've been to. Wrestlers wise, look, Koguma, I have gained a lot of appreciation for seeing live. Not necessarily because what she does in the ring, although she's a fantastic in-ring talent. It's what she does away from the cameras. She's really good at, like, when they're doing the tag matches and you've got to hold someone back. There's two type of wrestlers. One who is like, I will put a hand on you and I will force them to sell like I'm holding them. And they're doing nothing. They can't be asked. And then you've got someone like Koguma who is actually legitimately, making it look like they're trying to hold someone back or trying to desperately get in the ring. She does wonderful in that aspect, and going to fans and interacting with them at the show I went to in Utsunomiya. She went out to the cheap seats to thank someone who had like a Koguma sign. Not every wrestler does that. Very few wrestlers do that. So I gain a lot of appreciation watching her live. And Anarchy, Ryu Mizunami, she's not my favorite wrestler around, but every time I've seen her live, I can't help but get swept up in the hype that comes out with her. The crowd always go wild for her. She's always an absolute party, an absolute blast. And she's someone who I think if you watch live, you will enjoy a lot more than just purely watching on television, where you're not getting the vibes quite on the same level.
It's only fitting that I had you, while you're sick, answer a 5-minute plus response.
I mean, it didn't have to
What
be
we
a
spoke
5-minute response, but like, I'll take
It's
my
only
chances.
Yeah, it's only fitting that I make you have to do the whole work, and I'll just sit here and wait. Well, I'm the
Yeah.
one that's fine. But thank you for the question. We'll
Mm.
move forward now. Here we'll get away from Trent and Japan, and we'll get to the Stardom part of this podcast now.
Which
Uh,
exist in Japan.
yeah, well, thank you for keeping it on theme with certain answers. At least I won't blame you too bad. But let's
You know
go.
I was saying Choco Pro in that question. You
Oh,
already know.
I knew the answers before you said them, like, and you didn't tell them to me. I just knew,
Mm.
like I've talked to you enough. Obviously, I do a podcast with you. Um, but the next question we have is from Doc Spoon. This question is: what would be the most surprising thing you expect from Stardom for the rest of the year?
I'm glad this question was asked now and not like a month and a half ago.
Yeah. Um. Hmm. So I'm gonna keep it like real. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, Tam leaves after Tam says I'm
Mm,
staying, right? It's like that's
yeah,
not
yeah.
happening.
It would be
Um,
surprising, but not relevant.
I think the most surprising thing would be like if the that's a good question. Shit. I have like a few like different ways I want to go here, but I don't want to go too far. I think the most surprising thing would be like if they ran like a bigger venue than like the Yokohama Arena at any point.
Mm,
Like if they pivoted away from Sumo Hall for Dream Queendom and did something
yep.
bigger, like that would be shocking.
Mm,
And I don't think it would be very smart, but they are getting some steam right now.
yeah.
But that is pre people leaving.
Mm,
I think another aspect would probably be like a full on inner promotional show of some sort, whether that be with other Joshi promotions, a company in America. I think that would be very surprising to me.
mm,
Like, yes, we are seeing them do a lot for the WrestleMania week situation right now, but they're just gonna be in America. Why wouldn't they do anything, right?
yeah.
Like WrestleMania week is when all these wrestlers around the world come in, get a paycheck, get some extra money. Like that's what it is.
Mm.
So
The
like,
surprising thing is more Stardom are doing it at all rather than Stardom
right.
talent getting to stretch out.
Yeah, and once they had that US show, it's like, I mean, it makes sense, you know.
Mm,
It makes sense if it's possible and they're there. Why not?
yeah.
But those would probably be my two main things. I won't go like crazy with like the roster or anything
Mm,
because for reasons that I don't feel like getting into. But
yeah.
I don't think anything's shocking at this point when it comes to like roster movement.
Yeah, it's hard to really name a surprising thing because like everything right now is so out of whack and there's so much up in the air that to say something is surprising or not surprising kind of
Oh,
almost feels disingenuous.
I got a new
You've got
one.
another one?
Yeah. Tam Nakano doesn't win the World of
Oh,
Stardom title back. That would be very surprising to
mm,
me.
mm. We're both sitting here thinking she wins it back at some point
Mhm.
this year for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I think again, it's not necessarily super surprising, but I think there will be someone that signs with Stardom that we
Mm.
don't might not expect. In the sense,
Mhm.
like you can look at outsiders and think, oh, I could see them signing with Stardom or whatever.
Sure.
I think this current climate, whether you're blaming it on they were anti Rossi and now Rossi's gone, they're more open to it, or just certain doors have now been opened up with people leaving and whatnot.
Mhm.
I think there will be a search for someone outside of the company that they can bring in. And I think there's going to be some talent that kind of see an opportunity in Stardom that wasn't there, say, a year or two ago, and that will convince them to sign. Now, if you ask me who that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, I'm not expecting it to be an obvious name
Mm.
necessarily. Yeah,
Sure.
people who came in
You're
and signed like a year or two ago under, say, the Rossi system, they generally made sense. Like you looked at them and go, yeah, they're Rossi type wrestlers, which means now under a new regime, they are going to be looking for slightly different types of talent and stuff. So that's kind of going to be perhaps the most interesting too, is when they sign, people you look at them and go,
yeah.
okay, why you?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good definitely a good one on that. We'll see what ends up being more surprising than where what we've already gotten.
Yeah,
We've had enough in my opinion, but you know, more is to come, I'm sure.
it's only
Uh
March.
this is from the 94th minute. Do you think they should bring in a tertiary title, sorry, or even return the SWA belt without the restrictions to Stardom to give something for the lower mid card slash jobbers to chase for? I don't think there's any jobbers except for Lady C, but you know, personally, I'd love to see Ida with some kind of never open weight style title within the company. We're in an interesting situation, obviously, because I think we're still learning like what is the new vision for all these titles? Like,
Mm,
is the Wonder now going to just settle into being like the intercontinental type, right? Or is it going to still have the meaning behind it? And I think ultimately the wrestlers will do their best to keep that meaning behind it
yeah.
in all actuality. But you and me have had this conversation many times. I don't know on what podcast by now. Um, But I think bringing in another title for the lower roster is a smart choice because not everyone is a high speed wrestler.
Mm,
Not everyone can wrestle for the wonder. Not everyone can wrestle for the world. So it's I always bring up Saki Kashima, for example, because she's always a good response to that. And yes, she did win the high speed title last year, but Saida is another good one. Like, you don't see her challenging for any of these belts anytime soon. At
mm,
least I don't. It'd be cool to
mm,
see, but I don't see that. So having a title like a never open weight, I don't think they could make that work on a Stardom roster because you don't want to. I think an open weight title like that mindset is definitely a good idea. And I'm not talking about a strong women's championship. That is now gone. Let that go. Let that go. And bring in a title that I think can be defended amongst that crew. I
mm.
think that's a good idea. And if that listen, I don't think Stardom is in possession of the SWA title anymore, but I'm just gonna guess that was, at Rossi's house and they probably didn't ask for it back. Uh, but maybe they have it. Um, but I think, like, yes, I would love to see that happen.
Don't make it the SWA title, please. Like,
No,
even if you're changing the rules for it to be,
just
you
make a
know,
new belt.
yeah, like, I don't fully get the fascination with the SWA championship because I've seen a lot of people say, oh, they want to see it come back. Like, talking about it's got some massive prestige and vaunted history. That belt was on life support for years before they finally pulled the plug on that thing. And like during that time was its best reign with Shuri actually making it feel like a damn. But even before Shuri's reign, the belt didn't really carry a lot of value or a lot of meaning. And the whole purpose of the belt died as soon as the belt came into commission. The Stardom World Alliance was defunct. It is defunct. Like,
Right.
you don't need to bring back a belt that has a lineage that you then have to explain. Oh well, this lineage doesn't count anymore. And, oh well, what about the rules? Oh well, the rules don't count anymore. Like, just whether it's at Rossi's house, whether it's at
Yeah.
Mayu's house, Okada's house, just
I'm okay with not
let it
bringing
be.
it back.
Let it be.
Yeah. I think the only time it made sense to bring it back is when you had like Mariah May and Megan around and they
Mm,
didn't. And now they don't. So don't bring it back. Just make a whole new title.
yeah,
Easy.
it would have made sense too if they weren't doing the New Japan Strong Belt, because that
Right.
kind of feels like it's feeling the base concept of it's a championship that kind of gets defended around in different promotions and
Yeah.
stuff. And we don't know what its long term future is now that Stephanie Vakir holds the belt. Maybe it's going to be defended against people that aren't Stardom talent a lot, and we don't really see it coming to play in the Stardom orbit the same way it was. But the biggest issue Stardom has right now with singles belts is, especially with where the strong belt was at, you had 4 championships, singles titles, that all kind of stuck in the main event upper mid card scene.
Mhm.
World of Stardom was obviously main event belt. The Wonder of Stardom was, yeah, again, it's not a mid card belt; it's an upper
Yeah.
main mid card belt. The IWGP Women's Championship is a main event level belt, and
That's
it just
high.
doesn't get defended.
That prestige is arguably higher. Like, in terms of like who it's defended against,
Yeah,
it's a very specific class, as
yep,
we've seen. It's the Mercedes Monets, the Kyries,
mm,
the Utamis, obviously Mayu has a belt,
yeah,
but Sari, like, this is this is an
yeah,
extreme level. You have to be at the highest level, so that ain't
yeah.
helping at all.
And the New Japan Strong Belt, like, you had some lower level talent challenging for it, but Julia is a main event level talent. Stephanie
Right.
Vakir may as well be considered a main event upper mid card level talent. And I mean, Willow Nightingale was not meant to win the title. That was meant to be a Mercedes Monet championship victory.
Exactly.
So even that belt isn't really low enough in the pecking order, at least right now. You would have to devalue it to bring it to that level. I don't like the idea of bringing in another singles championship because there's just so many in the Stardom
Bushiroad,
orbit right now.
Bushiroad, devalue a title.
Well, we know they like to merge belts together, so
Yeah, don't
maybe
do
they
that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Please don't do that.
keep the designs. But
Mm.
yeah, we need a high speed championship level belt that is not restricted to high speed level
Yes.
talent. Now, whether that means you get rid of that belt, that I know that is very contentious, I would be okay with it because I just think that division is great and as exciting as it is not deep enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, But that's a me opinion to get rid of that and
Well,
just
it
open it
would
up.
work really well if May Sarah was defending the mid card belt rather
Yep.
than the high speed belt
And she
because
can defend it quickly. Like you can have high speed matches in that mid card
yeah,
championship, but then you can have someone like Asaya Ida who she could challenge for the high speed belt, but it would be a
sure,
stretch. Whereas if she's challenging just for a mid card belt, it's perfectly viable. And her versus May
yeah,
Sarah in a championship match would be really exciting at
I
any
agree.
speed.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Especially just make sure you give the belt back to like Tayo or Rossi, please, if you're gonna get rid of it. I don't
Well,
need
I don't
that.
like Rossi's chance of getting the belt right now.
No, no. So give it to Tayo. You know,
Yeah,
or let Azumi keep it in a safe or something. I don't know.
until it falls
Next,
apart
next
in
question.
2 weeks' time.
That's the problem. It's falling apart. They might just throw it in the trash. I don't. We don't want that.
Yeah.
That's a historic landmark. That belt at this point. It's not. It's not just a thing. It's a landmark because of how nasty it looks. But we
There's
love
some parasites brewing on that championship that haven't been discovered anywhere else in the
it. It
world.
must not be fun to wear. At QZX underscore XZQ, we know names like Micah and Not Spoiled benefit greatly from Ogawa's departure. I'd just like to say, I'm pretty sure Natsupoi and Micah were going to do pretty good with Rossi around, but that's fine. Micah did get the world title a little bit sooner, but I think they were going to be okay. But what wrestlers do you think will be the biggest losers with the transition from Ogawa to Taro Okada regime? Suzuki.
Yep. Yep.
That is, I read this question yesterday when we got him, and I said, oh, well, that's easy. Suzuki. Rossi wanted to make her world champion
Mm.
twice in her first year in the company at 21, 22
Mm-hmm.
years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's her. I
Yeah.
don't think there's anyone really that I can even put in the same discussion because everyone else is doing except for people leaving, obviously. But like
Mm-hmm.
that's not really
Not
part
the
of this. It's
question.
the people that are staying,
Yeah.
and it's Susu.
Yeah, it's a simple fact. Like she was being pushed as the next golden child, and not to say she won't still get those opportunities under the new regime, but it was very clear. Like Rossi likes his super pushes. Suzu was next cab off the rank, and the only reason she's not champion right now is because of outside factors of that setting. It'll be very interesting to see how she's handled over this next year, all things considered. I don't think they're going to bury her, but like it's not really a case of is someone going to get buried or not. It's a question of who was better off a year ago under that regime versus
Yeah,
right now. And Suzu is the most obvious one. I guess the only other names that would kind of pop up are people that maybe got bonus points for being people Rossi liked, even if they weren't getting pushed heavily. Like someone
sure.
like Saki Kashima, yeah, she was very much someone that Rossi obviously liked quite a bit. She was given opportunities, even though she wasn't necessarily a high level wrestler. You couldn't put her in consistent main event matches, but she was always relevant and made relevant. The new regime, they might see money in her. I think they'd be stupid if they didn't. But I think there's also more chance that maybe her star gets dimmed a little bit in favor of other wrestlers that maybe suit management more or are, you know, more committed in that situation. But it's
Mm-hmm.
Suzu is the most obvious one.
Yeah.
But the good thing is she's 21. She's got plenty of time to turn things around, and I don't think they're going to bury her either. It might just take a little bit longer to get back to where she was about to get to.
At Brian a maniac, I believe that's this. Sorry, I disappeared. Yeah, at Brian a maniac with Stephanie Vaquero winning the strong title and Kid and Rock are recently having a tag against two CML wrestlers. Do you think there's a possibility of having a Joshi versus Luchador tag match at All Star Grand Queendom? Possibly May, Azumi, and Kid versus Vaquero and three other CML wrestlers. I will not rule anything out in this new regime, but I find it unlikely just because I think the main purpose of getting that belt on Vaquer is it can be a little more US based moving forward.
Mm. I think there's definitely an avenue for that kind of match,
Sure.
just maybe not at Grand Queendom.
Yeah.
Because I think like some of the talent listed maybe are better suited to different roles on that kind of show. And the CMLL talent aren't established in Japan enough to make them a draw. Like in the sense of like, you look at who they bring in for All Star Grand Queendom from outside of Stardom. Last year was Mercedes Moné, a pretty big name.
Mhm.
Chihiro Hashimoto, a pretty big name in Japan. This year we've got Tsuri coming in. She's pretty big. A couple of CMLL wrestlers that haven't been established in the Stardom rotation and orbit yet.
Yeah.
I don't think bringing that same value that, Stephanie Vaquer herself, sure, I could see her maybe coming in and having a match. I don't know what her schedule is. I think her coming to Japan was more fortunate than maybe planned.
She
So I
missed
wouldn't
a
expect her.
all-woman show that
Yes,
CML ran for
yes.
that.
It's, I don't see it happening at All Star Grand Queendom. I could see it happening at some point. I couldn't even tell you if it'd be in Stardom. That could be a show that's done in America or done in CMLL if they do
That'd
start
be
to
pretty
expand that
cool.
partnership.
That would be very cool. I know Azumi and I'd like to see Azumi and Starlight Kid get a chance to go to CML once. Next up, do you think Taro Kata should hold off on the Queen's Quest versus Suzu and May tag match till Queendom? No. No, it's so far away. The match was supposed to happen in January.
There's too much that can change. And this isn't even like what if one of them leaves for Rossi's promotion situation. If you're asking everything to stay perfect until December, injuries, like look at what happened last year with the amount of injuries
Should
that
I
came
assume they
about.
meant Grand Queendom, maybe?
Grand Queendom would make more sense because there's
Okay.
less of a wait.
I would still say no if that
Yeah, I
matters.
would still say no. Again, because I feel like some of those names might be be wanted for other things. But like, if it's Dream Queendom, absolutely not. Because it wouldn't surprise me if Sai Kamatani's in the main event of Dream Queendom.
Right,
Um,
right.
and like May
Well,
Sarah, I would probably want having a high speed title match at Dream or Grand Queendom.
exactly.
It's one of those situations. If the opportunity's there, pull the trigger on it now. The longer you wait, like the perfect example is, how long it took for us to get Momo Watanabe versus Julia, and how long it has taken, currently still running, for us to get Utami versus Julia. The longer you
Yeah.
wait to pull the trigger on that kind of thing, the more chance things can go wrong.
This is from, and I like this one kind of as a overall one. At Anwar Starwind. What companies and countries would you like for talent to go for temporary or longer excursions? So,
Australia.
I'll answer this in two ways. I don't want to see long excursions for any Stardom wrestler because I think that process has proven to not be all that great for New Japan anymore. For example, we're just going to use New Japan for example. I know other companies do it, but we're going to use them for an example. But I do like the idea of temporary, like send them for a couple weeks or something like that. And I'm automatically going to say Mexico. I think you learn a lot from there. Wrestlers that have taken time there come back with, I think, more presence because you work the crowd a lot in Mexico. And I think that's it's such a great thing to learn that I don't think we have a full appreciation of, especially if you don't follow it. But like, for example, Hana Kimura went to Mexico
Yeah.
and she came back a different wrestler.
And she did not work the main promotion.
No.
Her Mexico tour is like one of the weirdest things to see, all things considered. She's wrestling under pavilions where it's like you can tell it's like probably 40 degrees and they're cooking food just by the ring. It's a fascinating situation. Like, chances are the wrestlers that would be doing Mexico this time around are doing it in CMLL in actual buildings.
Yeah. I think Mexico would be cool in CMLL. That'd be very cool. We see Joshi wrestlers go there for the International Grand Prix that they do. Mace Saruga's a pretty much a usual for that now. She's done it
2 straight
2
years.
years in a row. So I'd love to see if they sent an Azumi over for that. That'd be cool. Something like that. But nothing long. I don't want long excursions. I think excursions are actually pretty dumb. That may be the hot take, but I think they don't do all that good. I've watched New Japan bring back a bunch of wrestlers and they're not ready per people, and it's like, what was the point?
I think there is a certain value in excursions, and like you look at someone like Yoda Suji, I think benefited a lot from just being off the New Japan
Sure.
signal for a bit to change the character. And I think that's what they're most valuable for is if you want to get someone off screen to change them up, but
Yeah.
you don't want them to just sit around doing nothing. An excursion is the perfect way to pull that off. The issue is like typically the men in wrestling, you have more time that you can invest before you pull the trigger on them.
Uh-huh.
Women typically, yeah, and you just have to look at Stardom's history. A lot of wrestlers come and go incredibly quickly, and so you can't afford to say take a year and a half and go
Right.
wrestle in another country because they might retire halfway
Yeah.
through that
Like
trip.
a month max is where I'm at for
Yeah.
any excursion. Or it's like if you send them to another company in Japan, I do like
Mm-hmm.
those. I think those are always interesting. Just like send them, it's kind of what people thought Unagi was gonna do. And then,
Yeah.
she didn't come back. But I think that's like an interesting way because then you learn different styles, you learn from
Mm.
other people in the same realm, and you can kind of show your star power a little bit
Yeah.
by traveling. Even like I just think like learning other wrestling is a good thing, but
Mm.
sending someone away for a year is not like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities, and like if the door is more open to doing some of this stuff, like we're seeing GCW get used a bit more. I know they're not a popular group amongst certain segments of the fandom, but I think they are a group that does, you know, treat the star power coming in appropriately.
Oh, they
DPW, I would
win.
love to see jump on
Mhm.
board with the Stardom train because
That'd be
you
good.
know they will get used properly. Uh, Eve in the UK is an obvious one. Like that's if you want them to perform in England, that's probably your best bet for Joshi. There's plenty of promotions I'd like to see Stardom work with more in that respect, especially if the talent want to do international stuff. If they want to go and work in America, give them the opportunity to do a month, 2 months in America. You know, everyone benefits from that. They're happy, they're content. You get a chance to give them what they want, and you can work around that. Like, there's very little that you don't benefit from that. The other one, of course, is the burgeoning Southeast Asia expansion that
Yep.
Bushiroad in general are doing. That is obviously going to be more top down, but I think there's some really exciting opportunities there for wrestlers to perform. We heard recently Stardom appearing in Taiwan as part of the New Japan show.
Yep.
That's cool. That's the kind of stuff you like to
I
see
like
more
that.
of. Mm,
I like that. I have no problem with talent like going other places and doing these
yeah.
little things. It's just like I ain't sending like Rana Yagami away for a year excursion. She's gonna learn more from working with Shuri on house shows than she's gonna learn from some random indie in the UK for me.
That is the difficult thing. Like, typically, you're sending talent off to learn at a area which has a certain level that is close enough to the promotion you're sending them to. The reality is the Joshi scene, the women's wrestling scene, just isn't that deep in a
Yeah,
lot of areas to justify. Like, if you send Rani Yagami to America to learn, she's essentially going to have to bounce around the independents. She won't necessarily have the same like mentorship that she would like as a guy working Ring of Honor.
reality.
And
She
the
might have
reality
more
is, yeah, like
talent too.
you're better off learning from Shuri.
Yeah, yeah. That's just how we feel about it. But next question, we'll move on. That was a good question, though. Thank you for
Mm,
that. That's kind of a good one. Just like looking back at history too,
yeah.
and just thinking like how trips have gone. They don't really go long, but they do a lot of good. And Hana's always a good one to look at, especially if you think about Mexico and the interest. If the CML thing continues, which is very
Mm.
possible now, because obviously Bushi Road has that relationship with them.
How much do you
Uh,
think she benefited from that trip?
I just think if you watch any any show in Mexico, there's such a connection with the crowd that you need to have
Mm-hmm.
to make it work. And it's like there's something about just working a different audience,
Yeah.
right? A Joshi audience, and I know, it wasn't CMLL, but it was a Mexican audience that, they may not know them, but someone like her with the charisma she has, it's a
Mm.
way to bring that out and work to the fans. I think it's little things like that that does help. And I think even though she obviously had the it factor.
Mm.
It's a little trip that just helps that. And even when she went to Ring of Honor too,
Yeah.
like that was a different experience for her, and she just built her star power up. It's little things like that. They're very different. You're gonna learn something new from whatever location you go to.
Mm.
Um, but I think Hana's always my favorite example because I do remember seeing that change when I went back and watched through. It's like before and after, it's just like the appreciation of connecting with the crowd. And as we saw with her, no one had a better connection with crowd.
Mm. Yeah, I was just curious because I feel like purely in ring, I don't think she necessarily
No,
benefited that much, and even her character work, like she came back, and it took a while to find the new character.
I'm
But
sorry.
I
You're
do
telling
agree,
me
like
she didn't learn a lot from Chaos? That was the name of the promotion.
yeah, but that's sort of where I was like,
In
asking.
Ring
I think
West.
you
Yeah,
need to like if you're sending talent on these
for
excursions with
sure.
the intent for them to learn, you kind of need to know ahead of time why they're going to a certain place. Because
Mhm.
she's not necessarily going to Chaos to learn better in ring grappling.
No.
As opposed to Sarah going to CMLL where she learns more of a lucha libre style.
Mm,
You're benefiting from different things depending on the area, and that's where like you've got to make sure if they want to just go wrestle America because they've got a passion to go wrestle in America, that's one thing. But if you're sending them to a place to learn and develop their game, you've got to be smart about where you're sending them to make sure that you're going to help them learn what they need to learn. Don't just say,
right.
"Oh, any excursion's a good excursion." It's you've got to be
That's
smart
not
about
absolutely. You want to pick your spots with that.
it. Mm.
This next one is from Will Pro Wrestling. Let's say Sari and Chihiro Hashimoto continue in Stardom. Should they be in the main title picture? Yeah. If they stay long and they are around enough, I have no problem with them being in a main title picture. But Sari is already in a title match.
One caveat. They have to be willing to lose. I'm
Yeah.
looking at you, Maya Yukihi. Don't bring in talent into main event level
Mhm.
matches and go, oh, okay, you don't have to lose against
Yeah,
our top
exactly.
champion. Yeah. If Sari, Hashimoto, anyone are willing to come in and do the job for your top champion or, your Wonder Stardom champion, great. Like,
Do the
Chihiro
job for
Hashimoto
anyone
versus
ultimately.
Chihiro Hashimoto versus Maika, I would love that match. That would be a fantastic match, as long as it doesn't end in a crappy double count out.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is also from Will Pro Wrestling. Do you think Stardom could benefit from a relationship with other promotions outside Japan that's similar to the one we talked about? But I think relationships is a little bit different. If you
Yeah.
do have a relationship with ACMLL or
Mm.
obviously the one that people always talk about with AEW, any relationship can benefit, but it has to go both ways.
Yes.
That's very important. It has to go both ways. It's not you can take everyone and give nothing back except for Jack Perry.
Stardom are in a very unique position because compared to a lot of promotions, in theory, they would have quite a lot of leverage. Because
Yes.
the reality is, like, these two promotions looking to work together, they want to get something out of it. And Stardom approaching AEW, they don't have the leverage. AEW is a far bigger name. Yeah, it benefits Stardom more than it benefits AEW to work with them. So they are giving up a certain amount of leverage if they were to build that partnership. Same with WWE. Stardom going to Pro Wrestling Eve or DPW and saying, hey, we're willing to work with you. They have all the leverage in the world. They can send Saya Ida to DPW to become an unbeatable DPW world champion. And
That'd be pretty
DPW will
awesome.
probably have to go, yes, mister, what else would you like?
Yeah.
I'm okay with the partnerships. I worry, like, depending on which promotion it is, who's losing out most. I don't want to
Yep.
see promotions have to kowtow to a bigger promotion, be it Stardom being the big promotion or the small promotion. I want there to be a more equal exchange of opportunities and potentials. There's definitely a lot of value to be gained from that, especially smart partnerships. But if you were to ask me, should Stardom work with AEW now that Rossi's not in the picture, my answer would still be no, because I wouldn't trust that partnership.
Um, next question. Uh, at @A_Zoomies. That's a very funny name. Who would you think would make a logical challenger for the high speed title? Seems inevitable that Azumi match will happen at some point, but other than that, who would make sense? We're gonna get through some of these current day questions quick because obviously I have a bunch of history ones on the back end. Who would make sense for May Sarah? You said
Everyone that has always challenged for the high speed title whenever someone new is champion.
Well, there
We
was a second
know the
part.
names: Fukigen Def, Starlight Kid.
There was a
Froggenwald.
second part. It said, could we see something like May Sarah versus May Saruga? I think that would be a very good choice.
Those two have a lot of history together. It'd be a massive missed opportunity.
Yeah. I think that would be a great choice. Obviously, with the idea that outside talents are possible, you can always look out there. May Saruga being an obvious one. But yeah, like Trent said, it's the obvious people. You know, it's not gonna go that differently. Next question. This is from at Real Carlos 01. What do you all make of what happened post match in the main event between Julia and Vaquer? I've seen Vaquer do this exact thing before in a company, aka in her own company. It's just kind of the thing that they do. It wasn't that big of a deal. They're not like, I don't think they're like heated at one another. It's just like a way to sell it, kind of a way to sell Vaquer as the heel. And it worked out because it worked towards the ultimate Oedo tie attack and Tam making the save and stuff like that.
If it was purely in a vacuum, I could understand the kind of confusion. Oh, what's going on here, and people thinking maybe it was just a miscommunication thing. But given she's been working with Oedo Tai on this tour, Oedo Tai then come out and attack Julia, which set up her leaving with Tam Nakano. It does feel like it was just, how can we incorporate this into the show? And it kind of works out well.
This is from Kane with the push people like Mace Sarah and Hanan are getting. It really looks like Stardom's welcoming youth movement stars like Hazuki, Azumi, SLK being 26 or under. How far can this current roster push itself? It's not a youth movement. This has been Rossi's entire booking forever. He has always went with the youth. Like we started this off by saying Suzuki was going to be world champion.
Yeah,
that is youth. It's just like he on someone like Hanan, he was just waiting for her to be older. She's been with the company forever. She's 19. It's not like there's no rush with a lot of people. But
the timing's been perfect with Hanan because she jumped in the 5-star Grand Prix 2 years ago, and you could tell she wasn't ready yet.
Yes.
But it was a great learning experience. Last year in the 5-star Grand Prix, you started to see the pieces really come together.
Yep.
And now a couple of months later, look at her. The timing is perfect. And I think the timing would have happened regardless.
Yeah.
Whether Rossi was in charge, Harada was in charge, Okada was in charge, I was in charge.
I don't know about Harada, but yeah. But how far can this roster push itself? As far as it can. As far as this roster always pushes itself.
It's always
That's the one thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's booking at the end of the day. This roster is so talented. I know people are going to leave, but guess what? People are going to step up. That is how this goes. That's how this has always gone. Stars are made for a reason. Stars are always there to be made, and that's what Stardom does. I feel all the confidence. They know that. They see the talent that they have. They see the popularity these talents have. They have, I'm sure Bushiroad has stats and analytics that we do not have or will never see regarding these talents. And it's why you see, Starlight Kid's going to be fine. It's like she's one of the biggest, if not the biggest merch seller in the company. And it's things like that. This roster can go as far as the talent pushes it.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not a youth movement because it's always been there. Obviously, we mentioned Suzuki. Last year, you had Mirai getting mega push. She's 24. Before that, you had Utami getting mega push. She was like 22, 23 at the time. Had Sai Kamatani getting mega push. She was 24, 25. It's not a matter of age, even though I know at the moment you've got Tam Nakano who is in her, the other side of 30 and stuff at the top. But again, that's regardless of who's in charge. Tam's at the top. That's just how it is. There's no unique youth movement in Stardom right now. I don't think it's just maybe the people getting pushed are the people certain people wanted to get pushed. Because when you say Mirai was part of the youth movement, that doesn't count because I don't like her.
Right. Exactly. That's what people will say. At Kissed by Inertia, Julia once said that a group of Hana's friends made a vow to honor her dream and bring Joshi Wrestling to America. With this in mind, was the upcoming talent exodus always inevitable? No. And does it reframe Julia's decision to go to WWE? The exodus was never inevitable. That has nothing to do with something like this.
The exodus is needing Rossi to leave, which isn't Hana Kimura connected.
Right. If anything, no. That but does it reframe Julia's decision to go to WWE? Part of it can, for sure.
Yeah.
Julia has always, ever since Hana passed, Julia has done everything in her power to pay respect to Hana, and maybe in part of her mind, maybe this is one of those next steps that she believed that Hana could have done, and she will do it. So I think that definitely is interesting, but the exodus, no.
Well, I mean, like, the question is, who are the Hana's friends we're talking about? Because the first two names that come to my mind is Konami, who is doing American stuff, irrespective of Stardom, and Jungle Kyona, who did American stuff while her body was still holding up.
That's how she returned, actually.
Yeah. So, like, if you're looking at, like, those two and Julia, sure. But, like, I don't know who of Hana's friends might be leaving Stardom with the idea of going and doing America right now.
Yeah. The Oscars recently happened. Shout out Oppenheimer. Pick which Stardom wrestlers should win the following: lead performance, supporting performance, hair and makeup, and costume. So we'll do the past year, obviously.
Yeah. I like this question. It's the kind of question I would go for.
Let's go with costume first. Who would win the Oscar in Stardom for costume?
We both know what each other's answer for this is, don't we? It's Utami coming back with that new gear. Like, there's a lot of great gear coming in Stardom right now and over the past year, but the current black with the rose, like, there's no competition.
It's incredible gear.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Hair and makeup. So we'll do, like, just, I guess, overall look, glam. We'll say. I mean, I almost want to give it to Julia just because she always changes her look.
Julia was my thought, because she's used. So if you're giving,
this is the group Stardom Road Oscar Award, by the way. We are coming to agreement on this. This is how Oscar voting works.
Yeah. I would give it to Julie, because, like, typically, like, you don't give costume and hair and makeup to one person in a movie. It's for the collective effort. Julie has changed her look so much over the past year that it counts as an entire movie's worth of makeup and hair design, and it always works. So I would give it to her.
The other one I thought of was Mina, because she has changed her look a few times, hair wise at least.
Yeah.
Supporting performance. It's a lot of people.
My inkling is Natsupoi.
Yeah, that's instantly who I thought of. She did get hurt, but her overall importance to this company when she's around is just, we felt it this past weekend. You're going to feel it moving forward. You felt it when she was gone. She's very important. It adds so much to Stardom, even if she's not at the top as a world champion. And I think that that is everything that supporting performance is. If you watch Oppenheimer and it's not to get into the movies, but if you watch Robert Downey Jr. and what he did in that movie, like, it's so important to make that movie great.
Yeah.
And that's what Natsupoi does with Stardom.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah. I feel like Natsupoi, she's not been in the main event scene over the past year, but, like, we saw how much you lost when she's not there.
Yeah.
And she's always just involved enough to matter without being the central focus. You
guys got my inner movie / TV show buff out of me, so this is very fun for me. Great question from I don't even think I named it. I just got excited when I saw the question. At Brian A Maniac again. So thank you for this. This was great. And lead performance.
I'm trying not to be biased, but Maya Watani.
Yeah. Well,
I know I can name that, and you're not going to say no.
Of course I'm not going to say no. We have another show where I have never voted against this woman in a situation where I'm pretty sure we've almost made Ryan leave the show because of it. I'm not going to vote against her now. I think lead performance definitely deserves anytime she's been given the chance to be that leader over the past year, especially recently,
Yeah.
she has absolutely just outclassed everyone in that respect. So that's right, everybody. Mayu Iwatani is your Cillian Murphy lead performance. Or Emma
I
Stone.
didn't think
Emma
Cillian
Stone.
Murphy was playing her in the upcoming movie.
Well done. Next question is from at Ace of
Horrifying
Stardom.
thought.
Yeah, I don't want to see that ever. I don't want to see Emma Stone do it. I don't let alone see Cillian Murphy do it. Both great actresses, but
might be a bit beyond Cillian Murphy's range.
He's got range, but that's too much. This is from at Ace of Stardom. I think we got 4 different questions.
Ooh.
So we'll hit them all at once. Has Okada proven that being part of a wrestling club is enough to be a good booker? I don't know. Well, here's the thing, right? I think he's done a great job so far. I'll preface that. So I guess yes so far. But like you would think that, I don't know, a guy that was a wrestler and then's been booking for over a decade now would be pretty good at it too. But look at the other Bushiro company.
Yeah, Okada's done nothing wrong so far, but he's also not had to take any risks.
Right.
First 2 matches that Mike is defending the title against are Kamitami and Tami Hayashishita. Is that smart? Yes. Can you do that all the time? No.
You told
Cinderella
me Rossi
tournament has
left
been,
the notebook behind.
The Cinderella tournament has
Yeah.
been very well booked so far, and
I
especially
think that's
compared
his
to
credit.
last year,
Yeah. I'll
was
give
a
him that
big
credit.
difference. The thing is, like for me, we need to come back to this question 6 to 8 months' time. Because right now everyone's kind of getting on board to get Stardom going again, and especially if you're sticking around in Stardom, you've got that sort of motivation to help Okada coming along. 6 to 8 months' time is when you can start to see the politics start to come in. What if there's a wrestler who doesn't want to lose to another wrestler on the roster? What if there's someone who feels like they're not being used well enough? What if there's a wrestler that maybe has got one eye on Rossi's promotion, so they're trying to feed them good matches to convince them to stay, and then you're a wrestler who is committed to Stardom and is maybe not getting that same focus and push? It's very easy to start off on the right foot, but in 6 to 8 months' time, that's when the honeymoon period is over. That's when the true challenges of running a promotion will become apparent. And that's an area where he has 0 experience in.
Right.
And some of the stuff that you could pull in from typical business know-how doesn't necessarily work in a wrestling environment, because you're not dealing with business people, you're dealing with athletes and people who aren't in the business mode. That's where the challenge is going to come through. What if they start losing a few people to injuries like they did last year? That's when the true challenge for this new regime will really come into play. Right now, no complaints, doing everything right. Let's come back to this question when there's had a chance for things to properly happen.
Ask Micah fans in a few months. Anyways, no, seriously, after a great first weekend of the Cinderella tournament, do you feel any differently towards Stardom from when the news broke about Rossi being fired and starting his own company? My friend at Ace of Stardom, Brad, I've talked to you before, and you've listened to my 5-star Joshi show. And when everyone was in everyone with mass hysteria, everyone's freaking out, what's going to happen? I was the voice of reason. I was the one that said, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Sure. Was I wondering what Stardom was going to look like without Rossi Ogawa? Sure was. And do I feel pretty good about it right now? I sure do. But the talent was always going to there was always going to be talent there to get the job done. I don't believe in any talent more than this roster, whether they leave and go with Rossi or whether they stay. I don't believe in anyone more than this roster. And that is why I always felt perfectly fine about Stardom. Yes, the initial reaction, the initial, realization of Rossi being gone is like, oh my God, what is happening? But I always said there's a reason to be excited. And now that we're here, I feel pretty right about it. And if anything, yeah, I feel even better than I did when I was saying it. And again, it kind of goes with your last question, though. Talk to me in 6 months. I feel great now.
Mm.
Talk to me in 6 months. Talk to me after some wrestlers leave.
Yep.
Talk to me when things have to change, right? For now, feel great.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure in 6 months I'll feel pretty good. But it's still early, and Natsupoi booked one hell of a match for herself to come back in that made us pretty happy. So, wait and see. But I feel good about Stardom right now.
So basically, the answer is let Natsupoi book.
Yes. Which sounds terrifying when you say it out loud. But yes, let Poi book instead of let Poi cook, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome,
Not buy
everybody.
Poi, book Poi.
She's actually the reason Sareee versus Mayu's happening. No one else. I totally didn't think that match was going to happen, no matter if Rossi was there or not. Oh wait, yes I did. Because it just made too much sense after what that IWGP title match was last year, and the fact that Sareee had made it public in the past couple months that she wanted that match with Mayu. I'm pretty sure no matter who was booking, it was going to happen. But yeah, I feel good about Stardom. Right now, and I'm sure I'll feel pretty good about whatever Rossi's company becomes as well.
It's encouraging seeing the Cinderella tournament feel exciting again.
It's so much.
I know, like last year was particularly bad. Like I appreciate they had a vision for what the tournament was meant to be last year. It just wasn't a good vision, and it wasn't executed well. And in comparison, this year's has been better matches, more exciting, better big names still in the tournament. Like I like Mirai, but when it's her, Mai Sakurai, Waka Tsukiyama, and Ami Sarai in the final four, I'm finding it pretty hard to get motivated as someone who was at that show to watch the finals. Right now, it's already
Thank God Mirai won.
it's already exceeding last year's.
I know most people don't feel that way, but like, look at those four. Think about it.
Could have been worse.
They made the right choice.
Yeah.
Undeniably. We're gonna, again, like I said, we're at an hour already, but we have the historic questions to go, so we're gonna start steamrolling through these. How do you see the title picture shaping up after the weekend? Obviously, Mike and Tommy, that's very clear.
Micah versus Tam All-Star Grand Queendom.
Yeah. Wonder, eventually Poi, but Cinderella winner as well.
Yep.
And tag belts, because that's the only other thing I can picture right now. Tag belts will clearly be Crazy Star, based off of previous. And the artist belts probably EXV.
Yeah, well, they've set that up, and they also set up stars.
So one of the two, maybe both.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they have to face both of them at one point or another.
Can Aya Sakura and Sayaka Kurao coexist as the rookies of Cosmic Angels to become a force in the New Blood tag division? I will second this with someone asked me, how do I feel? I believe it was Kuznagi Slayer asked about what do I feel about Aya Sakura potentially joining Cosmic Angels. After I saw her new gear, she had to join Cosmic Angels.
I was so confused by that new gear until she made the request.
Can they coexist? Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, Aya Sakura's going to get back into the swing of things. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Sayaka, but yeah, they could coexist. I think it's very interesting. The funny thing about the New Blood tag belts are like they're kind of like the mid card belts we were talking about earlier now, because it's seemingly no more New Blood. So yeah, I think they could coexist. I think it'll be a fun little bottom of the roster story to follow.
Neither of them seem to have a killer instinct to force them to, like, the strongest has to survive. Like, I could be wrong. Sayaka could secretly be a killer, but they both just seem friendly. I'm curious to see how Aya Sakura does in Cosmic Angels, because I won't lie, when I saw the new gear, I was kind of like, oh, I liked her original look. So
when I saw the new look, I was like, huh?
Yeah, it is very kind of generic idol wrestling gear, which
she isn't an idol.
Yeah, but like, yeah,
I said I feel like she's supposed to be TJPW. when I
Yeah,
looked at the
it
gear.
did feel a TJPW look. It'll be interesting to see how she transforms under Cosmic Angels.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
can't hurt. There's good people around her, I mean, like to teach her
yeah.
probably.
Well, it can't go any worse than their first trainee, my Sakurai.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, fair point. Forgot that happened. That's so long ago. If you okay, this is from at XXEGBond Dylan, my good friend. If you could pluck one retired mid Carter from Stardom history to return to action, Koguma esque, who would it be? More so looking at 2011, 29 to 2019 rather than like Hameka. That's exactly what Dylan wrote.
That feels like a shot at me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a fair point. You know, we're
I
not.
mean, it would have been my answer.
I know, I know. I came up with two.
Mm.
My first one was Yuhi.
Yep, yep.
I know she like had challenged for Wonder and stuff, but like she didn't win it, so it feels pretty mid card to me. Because she had so much talent for someone that was not in wrestling for a very long time,
Mm.
and that kind of was the first person that popped in my head when I thought Koguma esque, like very
Yep.
talented. I think would be very cool to see back and what they could bring to the table. So she was my first one. And then Hiromi Mimura, who you and me have talked about multiple times on the show
Mhm.
without fully getting into it. I think those two would be my top choice. And if I was to name a foreign wrestler, because I wanted to mix it up, Jamie Hayter,
Oh
obviously,
yeah, yeah.
which would be
I
awesome.
was
But she
desperately
was a mid
hoping.
Carter then.
Mm.
Jamie Hayter now, oh boy.
Well, she was just on the verge. Like, she
Yeah.
won the SWA title. She was the tag champion. Felt like she was about to take that next level, and then COVID. Um,
Yeah.
Thankfully, my answer is different from the two you gave. It's always nice
Three.
when we're not just agreeing on the exact same thing.
Three. I gave three.
Yeah, but like I wasn't thinking
I
foreign.
was scared when I said Memora because I was like,
Yeah.
you and me talk about her so much.
Memora did come to mind, but I was thinking like this particular question is not time travel based, so it's like okay, they need to be young enough to kind of be
Sure.
gone for a couple of years and come back, which is why I went with Arisu Nanase. She
Okay.
was the 2016 Rookie of the Year and only
Mhm.
wrestled for a few more years, a little bit into 2017 before eventually retiring. She's someone I think fits that mold. Like she came in, she was a teenager. She kind of, did the teenage thing of like, oh, I'll give this a go. Maybe this isn't for me. I want to go do other things. But she had a lot of talent, a lot of potential. And I think you could bring her back in now, and she'd be like 26, 27.
Mhm.
She would fit in perfectly, and I feel like it wouldn't take that long for her to catch back up to the wrestling game and bring some quite interesting things. Like, she was doing moves now that we see like Hanan pulling off really well.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one. I think Yuhi would be 29. So
Yep.
obviously still old enough to like,
Hmm.
make a difference if she came back. That was the first person that came to my head. So I'll
Yeah.
just if I gotta lock in one, it's that one. But the foreigner was a fun one because I was like, well, Jamie. Like I think she was obviously a mid card, and like you said, she was
Mm.
about to make that next step. And I would have loved to see her make that next step, but in Stardom, I've seen her make that next
Yeah.
step
She has
elsewhere.
made the next step
Yeah.
just in AEW.
This is from our Ocean Cyclone co-host
Mm.
Ryan Delbert. What are some of the biggest Stardom what are some of the biggest what ifs in Stardom history? There's a
I
lot.
presume we're skipping the most obvious one. COVID and the big four that was on the cover.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the obvious one. That's the one everyone
I would
thinks of.
prefer not to have to do the whole Hana Kimura conversation because it
Yeah.
makes me sad.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't need to talk about Arisa Shiki getting injured. I could prefer not doing that as
Yeah.
well. Um,
But one of the associated what ifs from around that period that doesn't necessarily get discussed is what if Rossi did sell to WWE?
oh, then we would not be happy.
No, but like that would we're
Yeah,
talking about what ifs. That is, eventually he decided not to sell because he didn't trust their long term vision. Smart man, that Rossi Ogawa. Before selling to Bushiroad, maybe not so smart man, that Rossy Ogawa. But like that is like if he
Yeah,
was seriously considered, I don't know how close he was actually, but close enough to at least listen to their proposals.
yeah.
I mean, that completely changes the dynamics of pro
Joshi.
wrestling in Japan, and not just Joshi, but yeah.
Well, Joshi as in we would not be doing well right now.
Mm,
Um, yeah, Bushi Road's I was gonna say obviously getting sold to Bushi Road was a big
yep,
one. What a fun one. What if Arisa didn't retire the first time?
yep, yep.
Because she was pretty much gonna be the ace
Mm,
of the
mm, mm.
company. And I think if had she not retired, like what would her career have looked like? Because obviously she didn't have the injury scares or anything back then.
Yep.
She did a lot post that. I think, she would have been probably Io Shirai's great rival,
Mm, mm.
which is very interesting to think about. Obviously, we're the two Mayu guys here, but that would have been very interesting to see those two.
Arisa would
And
have been ready for that spot a lot quicker than Mayu was.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And she would have probably just been arguably her and Io would have been fighting for that top spot,
Mm,
like
mm, mm.
considerably. Like that would have been a battle back and forth.
Yep. One of my what ifs is around the same kind of concept and period. What if Yuzuki Okawa kept wrestling? Because she was only at
It's
it
a
for
good
two
one.
years, and like the company was built around her. They had to make some very big changes. Like the day that Yuzuki retired is the day that Io Shirai won the red belt. So it
Yep.
was a very clear like we need a new ace. Io, come accept your spot. If she kept at it, like that completely changes the dynamics of the company.
I think Stardom gets bigger faster
Yep.
because she was such a big star. I think
Mm,
there's a lot of what ifs, but I like the ones that we come up with. They're different,
yeah.
because I didn't want to do obviously you wrote an article about the big four and everything that happened, and we've talked about that I think on the show before.
Mm,
Um, and I don't want to get sad about it again.
yeah.
Um, and I think another one that we do have to bring up that we haven't went into detail on the show yet about, we will eventually. What if the Yoshiko and Axe thing didn't happen?
Yeah, what if they just settled it like grown women?
Yeah, like Yoshiko would have stayed in Stardom, Axe
Mm-hmm.
would have stayed in Stardom.
Yeah,
Stardom would have been very different. They wouldn't have had to they don't have to go down. The Mako stuff maybe never happens.
they don't
Mako
have
could
to
be in
rely
Stardom.
immediately on the freedom. How does that affect their ascension?
Mhm. Yep. And I think those are probably the biggest what ifs. I
Mm,
think.
mm,
I think we checked off maybe every box we could have possibly done.
yeah,
Um, just thinking if there's any other that we might have missed.
I
I,
mean they're the big ones. Like you could pull the trigger on like, oh, what
he
if
asked for
such and such
biggest.
won a
He asked for
championship?
biggest. So we
Yeah,
gave him the biggest ones.
yeah.
So thank you for that question, Ryan. That was a lot of fun.
Mm.
All right. We have 4 questions left, if I can count correctly. Nope, I can't. We have 5 questions left. We have 4 from 6 star and 1 from Xavi. Let's do the one from Xavi, and then we'll finish up with 6 star here.
Yep.
So, who's a wrestler you think would fit better in current Stardom from Stardom's past, and reverse? Someone from current Stardom who'd come across a lot better in one of the pre Boshi Road eras. I like this question because it is different from the one Dylan asked earlier.
Mm.
Especially, we're putting someone back into
Yeah.
the vault
This
and
feels like
seeing
a
what they do.
time travel situation. Like you
Yes,
can pluck someone from 2012, 2013, take them into stardom now as they were.
yes.
Likewise, you could take someone now, send them back in time as they are now. Like that's purely hypothetical, but it is an interesting one.
I will let you go first on who do you think would, if you could take someone from back then
Yep.
and put them now, who do you think who would be your fit for current Stardom and the way it's designed?
So my one is interesting because they would arguably fall lower in the card, but I think they would get a much better chance to shine. And that's Natsuki Tayo. Because obviously,
Mm,
when Stardom started off, she was one of their main players, but she was there very much in a veteran teacher role to lift up the
mm,
next generation. But if you took her as she was back then, not necessarily 2024 Sukaban Natsuki Tayo, but
sure.
you took her from back then and put her into Stardom now, the high
Yeah.
speed battle she could be having with like Azumi, Starlight Kid,
Yeah.
May Sarah. Like, she wouldn't be main eventing necessarily because she'd be in the high speed division, but like you would get the chance to see her fully unleashed, wrestling people at her level, at her ilk, in her genre. I think there would be so many just fantastic, fascinating matches to come from that. And she's got enough that she could rise up the ranks as well. But yeah, like to me, that's the most exciting prospect that you could transfer.
It's a very good one. This one's tough for me because like everyone I think of is like, I don't know, would they really be better now than, because like so many people fit in that time,
Mm,
right? Like I wouldn't pick Aikawa because Aikawa wasn't advanced enough to be having these like, I think she'd be great because obviously she learned,
yeah.
but she was perfect for that time and what they were trying to do in creating a promotion of excitement and
I guess it would
so
depend whether you're able to transfer her innate popularity from 2011 to now. Because if it's just like, oh, we've got a gravure model who can wrestle, Mina's a better wrestler than she was back then.
sure.
And
Yeah.
after 13 years, the popularity for Aikawa was not going to be there. But like if you can take her fan base from
Yeah.
2011 and bring them over with her, it'd be a different game.
Yeah. All right, I got mine.
Yep.
And it's because I've seen a little of it. Takumi
Mm.
Iroha. Takumi staying in Stardom and
Yeah.
wrestling as part of the main event picture and being part of this roster. Obviously, and the Takumi I'm taking is from Stardom, so she wasn't even a full product yet
Yes.
that we see in Marvelous. But I think it would have been very interesting to see who she would have become rather than being under Chigusa Nagayo, being under the Stardom system, being under this newer Stardom system,
Mm.
in a world where there's a Shuri and, these other wrestlers that she can still learn from. I'm picking young Takumi because we've
Yeah.
seen what older Takumi looks like, and I can't pick Marvelous Takumi. I'm picking Takumi Iroha that was created in Stardom and then before she left. And I think it'd be very interesting to see what that would have become because maybe it's a slightly different wrestler. Because
Mm.
learning
Mm.
from Chigusa as opposed to learning from the current crop and whether that have been, you know, I don't really know who, I forget who books now. Is it Milano or Trains?
Yeah, Milano's involved with the training. I'm not sure if he's there full time. Shuri and
Here, I'll
Mayu.
take
Yeah.
a step. You put her in a faction and she learns with that faction. A young Takumi, I think, would be very fun. Obviously becomes a superstar, and the rest is history.
She did cross my mind for that very reason.
Yeah.
Likewise, it's kind of been alluded to. Screw it. Let's take 16-year-old Arisa
Yeah.
Hoshiki, move her into 2024,
Absolutely.
training under Shuri, and
Absolutely.
hopefully, like, yeah, because 2011, you could understand maybe going, yeah, I'm not sure how much of a career I can make out of this when I can be
Yeah.
boxing and singing and all of that. Maybe in 2024, she sees a much brighter potential in the wrestling industry and decides to stick around and knowing that, hey, I can do what Tam does and just do a couple of songs with Bushi Road. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that would be great. Not that she didn't belong in her thing, but I think
No.
the this is just like where the level she was, and if she was wrestling with this roster,
Mm.
peak EO would have been something. Like peak
Yeah.
EO in this era of this Stardom with this crew,
Yeah.
would have been special.
Would
It
you
would
would you go with like 2015 EO for peak, or would you go 2012 EO so you get more years?
I think 2012. I want to see her learn with everyone and kind of
Mm.
learn, but get better and better. Because 2015, she was just at such a higher level than everyone. I want to see her get to that level with everyone
Yeah.
instead. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
You know the wonderful story you can tell there? Young upstart EO trying to conquer the icon. Roles reversed.
Magic. What could have been? And then someone from current Stardom who would have come across a lot better in one of the pre Bushi Red Hours. Do not say Momo Watanabe.
But we know. We have viable proof.
Well, actually, you would be taking this heel Momo.
Yeah, she'd still be doing better.
Well, no shit. It's not difficult to be doing better than current Momo, who does nothing.
This is an interesting question because the reality is, I think most of the roster, if you took just about anyone from the Stardom mid card right now and
Yeah.
you plucked them into 2015 Stardom, so
Uh-huh.
just after the Exodus, just after the issue with Yoshiko and Akira Sakawa,
Why'd you pick that time?
because it's no seriously because it's the best time for any wrestler to move into because
Sure.
there's no one established in that main event scene and they're leaning so heavily on the freedom and they're having to bring in Miko Satomura and outsiders like Tony Storm. You took Hazuki from right now and moved her into mid 2015. She's an instant main event caliber wrestler, instantly at the top of the card day in day out because she's not fighting
Trent, are you
amongst like
saying
15
she's
other
not a
people.
main event caliber wrestler now? Is that what you're
She is,
saying,
but she's
Trent?
not being booked like it.
Okay. Yeah. No,
She would get booked like it in 2015, just like Momo Watanabe would be, just about you could, as I said, you could pluck most of the mid card out. Like Ami Sarai put her in 2015, she'd probably
No.
be treated like a bigger deal.
No. Don't put her anywhere. No, please don't. Put her on the free agent list.
But yeah, I would say Hazuki's probably the one that
Yeah.
if you moved her into pre-Bushi Road as she is now, as the
Mm-hmm.
complete package she is now, you've got the best chance for success.
Mm.
Because I do think her in 2024 is better than 2019. Just for pure fact, I think she's matured a little bit more, which would then make her easier to work with. But especially if you put her in like 2015, 2016,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I think you'd get the most value out of her. But yeah, anyone really into that time period is going to benefit and be used better, really.
Yeah, I think that's I think Hazuki's a great one. Now I have to pick something different,
You do.
which makes it tough. You know, I think this would be interesting because of her star power. And I'm gonna go beginning of Stardom, so like first couple of years. Could Mina Shirakawa,
Mm.
current Mina
Yep.
Shirakawa, with all the confidence and all the star, she would be the top star.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the company, like the current Mina and just the way she carries herself and the entrance and like I think her and like the smaller venues would pop it a little bit more almost
Mm-hmm.
because like she just has a glow about her when she shows up, and you kind of see it now with EXV. Like now that she's in a newer group, I feel like you see it more because she does feel like the leader. Hot take maybe. I think she would be very interesting wrestling the Aikawas
Mm.
and the Nanais and those younger rookie crew and kind of being at the top. I think that would be a lot of fun for Mina.
Yeah, well, I mean, she'd instantly be their best wrestler, bar maybe Nanai Takahashi.
Mm-hmm.
Would have the best presence out of anyone on that roster. Really, only Yuzuki Aikawa, obviously,
Her and
like the top.
Aikawa would have felt like a super match almost
Yeah,
just
or
because
I
of
mean,
the
even you
star
could have them
power.
team up. Yeah,
Oh,
instead
that's
of
true.
Yuzuki Aikawa teaming up the way she did, you team her with Mina as the Gravure duo. Like, I mean, they didn't lose the belt until she retired, anyways, but they're definitely not losing the belt until she retires in that situation.
Yeah. I also one other one is maybe Saya, like 2018, 2019. Saya Kamatani current.
Oh, yeah, no, I
Kamatani.
wasn't sure which side you
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
realized I said Saya only. Kamatani, like
Yep.
current form,
Yep.
main event of with the Hashikis and the Mayus,
Mm-hmm.
Kagetsus.
Yep.
That would have been special. That would have been special. Or Natsupoi in every era.
I'd be interested to see Natsuko Tora in, say, 2016, 2017. Because,
Current, obviously.
yeah, current. Because I think, like, she's an interesting case of someone that works really well almost until the bell rings, and then it's a bit of a coin flip. Yeah, like, she'll have some really great matches, and then she'll have some disappointing matches. But her character work, if you lined her up as, like, second in command to Kagetsu in that Golden Era Oedo tie,
Yeah.
it would change up her character a little bit, but she's also proven to be dynamic enough to be able to adapt. But bring her in as the heavy for that Oedo Tai team. I think you can retain a lot of the charm that group had, but you
Mhm.
just give them a little bit extra firepower. You give them a unique edge to them.
Mhm.
I
I would
think
like
she'd be a
that.
very capable white belt contender during that period, possibly even winning it.
That would have been interesting. That would have been very interesting. Great question, Xavi. Thank
Mm.
you for that one. That was a lot of fun, kind of thinking of errors and stuff like that. All right, so we got 4 questions for 6 star, and then we can go home. These are pretty big questions. All right. Let's see. Okay, I like those 2 to be last. So let's go with this one first. Now that the Cosmic Mother, the new face of Stardom, Natsupoi, has returned,
No bias.
what what are the best Natsupoi matches, Stardom or otherwise, for those unfamiliar with her greatness to watch? Have you seen the tag match from this past Saturday? That would be quick recommendation if you haven't.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, First one that comes to my mind though is the Saya Kamatani
yep,
Wonder of Stardom title match that she
yep.
had at Cinderella Journey in 2022.
Hmm.
I think that is just the performance that made everyone realize, oh, she can be Wonder Champion.
Yeah.
Um, I think one more that I will name, and then I'll toss it over to you,
Hmm.
is the other Wonder defense she has, which was against Mina Shirakawa,
Yep, yep.
which I really loved from last year. I think that's one of her best matches. It was a super performance for her. It was a great performance, obviously, for Mina, who kind
Hmm.
of needed it because it's like, oh, she had the moment. What does it feel like now? And that, for a lot of people, myself included, was like, this reign should keep going because of how great that was. And then it
Yes.
didn't because Tam said, no, that's not going to work for me, brother. But, like, it's fine. It's fine. That's how the booking went. And she won the title and ruined everything. But not Natsupoi, I think those are her 2. The 2 title matches are obvious, but she has an entire 5 stars and stuff to
Hmm.
pick from. She has a lot of stuff to pick from. So tag
Yeah,
matches
just
too.
off the 5 star, a couple of like her match last year against Shuri was
Mhm.
fantastic, and I think was it last year she wrestled Mayu as well in the 5 star, and that was a
Yeah.
really really good match. I know they've wrestled
Yes.
a couple of times in the 5 star, but
Yeah, you're talking about the past year. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, those two both stand out to me. Um, it's very divisive, but I've got people interested in Stardom because of her cage match with Tam Nakano. It's like
That is
explain the rules beforehand, but like when you know what's going on in that respect,
yeah.
it is the highest of highs in regards to the emotional storytelling that those two are both really good at. And they also had a white belt match early on in Tam's reign, which was really good as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think that is a very good choice.
That was when she came out in the Kari Sane gear,
Oh, I
Kari
love that
Hojo
gear.
gear.
I love that gear. If anyone cares,
They do
if you
now.
want a free one, we don't like free the Chiro Hashimoto match from Sunday Girls last
Oh
year.
yeah, yeah,
That
absolutely.
was a
I,
hell
I
of a
was
story.
thinking pure Stardom,
I
but
know,
yeah,
11 minutes long, and Hashimoto threw Natsupoi out of the ring, and there was no one to catch her. And I think that alone is worth it. One of the best non-finals 5-star Grand Prix matches in Stardom's history. In notably, 6-star said Natsupoi Shuri is number 1.
oh well, we
Which is
agreed
funny
on
because you
that
just
one
named
then.
it. My first one, I'm gonna name 2. Momo and Mayu from the opening night of 2021.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. Just one of, if not their best, and they have a lot of great matches, but that's one of my favorites between those 2. It's
Yes.
just incredible. Um, Shuri and Takumi final night, but not the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
finals.
Not the finals.
So that was incredible. I that always sticks with me.
Mm-hmm,
But there's a
mm-hmm.
lot to pick from the past couple of years. There's not really any bad choices.
Just pick a Shuri match from the past 2 or 3 5 star Grand Prix, and you're pretty set. So I'm going to restrict myself to one Shuri match,
Okay.
and that is opening night from last year against Suzu Suzuki.
Yeah.
That's absolute barn burner kind of match, and perfect example of both wrestlers. But yeah, like
Arguably the best match of the tournament on night 1.
yep, yep. Honestly, night ones are often just as good as final nights in terms of quality of matches. You
Yeah.
just don't have the same level of drama
Right.
surrounding them. I'll also go Kagetsu versus Mayu Watani from the final day of the 2017, I think it was, 5-star Grand Prix, which is the one, if you need reminding, where Kagetsu and Oedo Tai decide to drop the entire steel structure of the entranceway onto Mayu Watani's neck. One of the most brutal spots I've seen in wrestling. And that was at the very start of the match. They wrestled a whole match after that. That didn't finish it. So that's a match I would list. What else would I name?
I just thought of another one I forgot.
Mhm.
Mayu and SLK from 2022
Yes.
Final Night.
Yep.
I absolutely adore that match.
Yep. Utami versus Azumi from last year at Kurikan Hall. That was fantastic as well. It's hard not to
That was
list
great.
stuff from the last couple of years. If
Everything.
it
Julia,
really it picked up over the past couple of years as an average rule, I think.
Julia versus Suzuki from the opening
Yep.
night of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Arisa Hoshiki versus Kagetsu from 2018 was really good as well.
Suzu and Julia from the final night of the 2022.
Yep.
There's a
Jungle
lot.
versus Kagetsu from
That's a good one.
2018.
I love. I think it's Hana and from Hana's run. I'm not gonna say Saki Kashima. I do love to always say the Saki Kashima one that is all of 5 seconds. But I will not say
Aaron
that one.
Kagetsu from 2017.
That's a great one. I want to find the specific one. I need to find it. Oh, Hana and Momo Watanabe. It's Hana facing the still kind of pretty much unbeatable Momo. Obviously, she's coming off of the Wonder Rain, but she's still like one of the top dogs. That match is fantastic.
Yeah.
I always recommend Hana's Incomplete run as well, just to like, if you want to get the full Hana Kimura experience, watching every single match she had from that tournament is always worth it, I think. And I feel that way pretty much about anyone that wins.
Yeah.
Though it's like, watch their journey and you appreciate every match a little bit more.
One final one I'll list from the 2015 5-star Grand Prix, Io Shirai versus Mayu Watani. Very forgotten about in terms of their story. 2015 or 2016? 2015. Very forgotten about in terms of their overarching story. But this was like one of the first matches I ever saw between the two of them, and it completely blew my mind. And kind of didn't frame me perfectly for what Mayu's character was at the time, because she is equal to Io in this match and goes blow for blow. I'm not sure if it's currently on Stardom World. I know it's accessible through other means, but doesn't necessarily match the levels of Io versus Mayu 1 and 2, to be fair. But like in terms of just like a 15-minute sprint, it's just tremendous.
I think those are enough recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more. Okay, that one's a good way to end it. So we will do who have been the most and least successful wrestlers that have had the rocket strapped to them in the Stardom system.
I mean, most, like, it's kind of hard to pick most because, like, Julia, obviously massive success. Utami, massive success. Kamitani, massive success. Io Shirai, obviously tore the house down pretty much from day dot. I don't know. It's hard to narrow it down to just one or two as being the most successful. Mega pushes. I guess Utami, just because like it was literally pushed from day dot. They had 3 months of training to work off of, and in many ways was relying on her growing very quickly to match her initial draw.
Utami had like 2 rocket straps in many ways.
Yeah, but I feel like you'd be counting the first one in that situation.
I will count both if I want to.
That initial rocket push. I mean, Yuzuki Akawa in many ways too. Like she had the rocket strapped to her from day dot. Yeah, I guess I'd probably go Utami in terms of like
most successful
over least amount of time, with the most at risk of it, like blowing up in their face.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could say Risa Hashiki, but like you already knew she was going to be able to match that talent in 2018.
There's a lot of success stories.
Mm.
You know, it's like I don't want to pick like obviously EO, obviously like duh. Aikawa from Star, like you said. Saya was a great one. I think
Yes.
that not many people thought she was ready for, and each
Mm.
time she proved people wrong.
Yep.
Suzu recently there was
Mm.
she didn't win the world title, but she won the 5-star Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rocket strap, and I think that was a success. And even counting her first year, which wasn't signed, but she
Mm.
was in that. But
That was the please come strap yourself to my rocket
yeah,
push.
exactly. I feel like I'm trying to think of an underrated one instead of like the
Yeah.
most, because like the most are like very apparent.
I mean, you
It's like
could say 2018 Momo Watanabe as well. That
yeah,
was a rocket strap, and it worked until
it
they
did.
took the rocket off of her.
Yeah, thanks, Bushi Road. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think those are all like the obvious ones. I think we just named them all. You kind of named them all before I could even talk. Um, Now I know how it feels. About time. It's good. That's called payback. Yeah, I think that's it. You know, it rockets. It depends how you define rocket strapping, but I'm gonna go with as one that we've seen is going with someone from a middle of the line character to becoming arguably the biggest star in the company. And that is, you lose Hana, you lose Arisa, Kagetsu retired, and we went with Utami obviously, and Julia was also in the midst of her rocket strap. But who won the main event of the biggest show at that time? Tam Nakano. And I think that's a very unique rocket strap in that it was a while later because she had been around for a few years.
Mm.
And obviously she had that match with Arisa Shiki, which was a big
Mm.
deal. But I don't think a lot of things had to happen for that rocket to be strapped.
Yeah.
And what we have seen is her become one of the biggest stars in Stardom history because of it. So I will say Tam couldn't have been more successful because look at her now.
Mm.
Look at where she is now. She's the most popular. She was more popular than Naito in Shuto. That's not. That wasn't going to happen if you don't strap the rocket to her at that point. And what does she do? She stays with Stardom. Who strapped the rocket? I'm just kidding. We have fun here. I think there's a lot, but I think Tam is my unique one of like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's post, like she's been around for a few years, but we need to make a star. Take a little time, but by the end of it, she is one of the biggest stars in the company, and now she's just
It's a different type of rocket strapping, but
yes,
yeah. I think from when they started to push her to when she got to the top is a short enough time to
it's
kind
really
of
a year
yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
less than because of COVID, but
Mm.
felt like a year. And then the last one, oh sorry, least. We have to do least successful. You don't want to say it.
Well, when I looked at this question, I'm like, who can I say that's not Mariah? Is there someone I can say, oh, they had the rocket strapped to them, but it fizzled out? I can't think of anyone else who really fits that bill. And it's not all her fault. She
Uh-huh.
was a victim of circumstance in a few different ways. Most notably, them deciding to delay her winning the white belt and strapping the tag titles on her, which proved to be an anchor, and then her finally winning the title during the most convoluted, messiest time in Stardom for a couple of years there, and then basically forcing her to be top champion when she wasn't meant to be top champion because Tam was out, and not
Uh-huh.
really giving like she had to be top champion, but they never took the risk on her being top champion because it was always still semi-main event. But that being said, like the Rocket was strapped to her, and where she is now isn't conducive to the investment that they have put into her.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Two
This is,
Cinderellas, white belt, tag belt, artists.
and how many of those ratings would you consider successful?
Yeah,
It's
it
just,
hurts to say, but
I don't even know if this. I guess a rocket strap is making someone world champion that probably doesn't deserve to be world champion. So I'm gonna go with Bea Priestley. She's no one liked her. And I don't think she won a lot of people over when she was world champion.
that
That was
was
a
such an
rocket.
interesting case, that title run.
Yeah, bad one. She beat Hana. That's one. I'm not gonna say Tony Storm because I don't think she was supposed to win the world title. So,
But I guess you could argue she did have the
she
rocket
did
strapped
win
on
both
because as
tournaments.
soon as she came into Stardom, she was one of their biggest names.
Yeah,
They never really took the foot off of her. So even if she wasn't meant to win the top title, like I think rocket strapped is justified in describing her.
would it be least successful though? I think
I,
she got over enough.
yeah, look, the thing is, like, a lot of people have very bad memories of Tony Storm in Stardom, and a lot of it comes down to
Her
she
not.
didn't do any jobs and that red belt run.
Yeah,
Ultimately, neither of them are her fault. Like, if they didn't want to book her to be undefeated, they don't have to book her. And
sure.
they could have booked her to lose that title a lot quicker than they did. It was a victim of circumstance. She was very popular over there, like, for that time period and stuff. So I don't think it was a failed rocket strapping. It's just one that's not looked back on fondly, especially by the Western fans. But I would say it was more successful than Mariah has been.
Can I make my Yukihi joke or no?
Please do.
I think rocket strapping her to the world title match was not the best decision for Stardom.
Especially behind the back of the booker. Rossi turns around. Why is a rocket on her back? I didn't do that.
Excuse me. Why is she my world champion has to now lose the title. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Sure. Sounds good. So yeah, those would be the least, I guess. But yeah, Mariah, unfortunately, recency bias doesn't help her, and based off of her comments recently, definitely could not help her either.
Like the reality is, there's been a very high success rate of rocket strapping. Like for all of the
Yes.
complaints, they're pushing this person too hard, too fast. They have a lot of success stories,
Yeah.
which the one time it doesn't really work is all the more painful when you're a fan of them.
Yep. Yep. All right. Last one. Then we can go to bed. I'm getting one of my friends who likes wrestling into Stardom. What are the quintessential matches from Stardom's history you would recommend I show to a newcomer? I know what you're going to say, so I'll just let you go first.
What am I going to say?
Just you always say Io and Mayu.
Well, here's the thing. There's two things it's awkward with this question. One, if they're already a wrestling fan, to me, you tailor what matches you suggest based on what kind of fan they are. Are they WWE, AEW, or are they coming from like New Japan and Noah? Because my match recommendations would vary wildly because what they're coming from are different types of things. And the second thing would be I'd probably be showing them more recent stuff because if you want them to get into Stardom, there's no point, like, unless they're a WWE fan, you go, you want to see Io Sky when she was at her best, come check out this match with Mayu. But, like, you'd be showing them, like, for example, Mayu versus Shuri from Itanyon Gate, January 4th, because it's like, this is a match that happened a couple of months ago. This is current Stardom.
Yeah.
So it's, like, if you're going pure history, it is a little bit different to, like, just someone coming into, who is a fan coming in. if I'm trying to get them into Stardom, I'm showing them slightly more recent stuff. But sure, I'll show them my versus EO. I've got no qualms about that.
Which one?
1 and 2. I think the story from 1 and 2, like it's good to see both versions.
Definitely don't
I
watch the third one first. That was
the third one, it's very interesting match. It's not a particularly great match because EO should not have been wrestling that match.
well, that's
Like,
true.
she takes one move and she's out for 5 minutes, and I'm not complaining. I feel bad for her. She's working so hard just to stay in that match. Yeah, so I'd probably show them 1 and 2, May Gold 2015, and then the match from December. But yeah, like, I'd be looking at stuff like Azumi versus Starlight Kid from February 2020, 23,
All right, dude,
2022.
stop taking all the picks.
Okay, I'll step back. I got a few. So
Jeez.
you go.
Well, Azumi Starlight Kid is my automatic pick. 2022 Cinderella Journey. You show them that they're going to see something that they don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I always go with that one. Another one I like to go with nowadays, or not nowadays, but because of familiarity, is Julia and Hanakamura from the year-end climax show, because it's 15 minutes. It's a fight. People know who Hana is. People know who Julia is. It's very simple. It's very easy to get into. It's not like the greatest match of all time, but it gets the job done, tells a story, kind of gives you what Stardom is supposed to be about. I'm trying to obviously name like different things throughout history here. I think if you just want like a great in-ring match, maybe the story doesn't necessarily matter as much. You show them the Shuri Momo Watanabe 5-star final.
Yep.
That is just all action.
Yep.
All hard hitting. Showing anyone Shuri during that time period is probably a good idea. Oh, and of course, Shuri and Utami.
Yeah.
I think that match is so well known that yes, it's long, but it's incredible. It's an incredible.
It doesn't
match.
feel 43 minutes.
No, it doesn't. I still can't believe it's 43 minutes.
Yeah.
I
think Shuri versus Momo is a great shout because I also, like you mentioned, it doesn't necessarily have story. It's the final of their biggest tournament. Like someone coming in, you tell them that they know the stakes instantly.
Because I know like a lot of people that get into like New Japan, they'll watch the Kenny Naito final.
Yep.
They'll watch the Tanahashi Ibushi final, right? They'll watch the final because it gives you the flavor of the promotion, but in a high stakes match where you don't necessarily need to know everything.
Yes.
And I think finals are always the best choice. If you want to give someone a Cham Julia match, you can always pick their final, obviously, because while there's history that's probably the easiest one out of their feud to show someone without knowing everything else. Because because you can't show them the hair match.
Why not?
Because you need to know the story.
I don't think you do. Like if someone comes into that match and you say, "Here's the situation: it's hair versus title," instantly,
but what are they a fan of? If they're a fan of WWE, they think hair versus hair is nothing, right?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think especially for a women's match, people can appreciate the high stakes of someone losing their hair.
I can't get myself to recommend that match. I feel like you need to know Joshi.
I've shown non-Joshi fans that match and they've been instantly sucked in.
Did they stay?
Well, they don't necessarily jump head on into Stardom, but they're asking me for future recommendations.
No, it wasn't good enough. That's what you just told me. Damn, that's a shame. Okay, well, we'll add Tam and Julia. Hair versus hair. If you show them the video before it, because there's a video before it.
Well, I mean, I assume that comes as part of the package deal.
I don't know. Maybe someone just.
If you're showing Rock versus Austin from WrestleMania 17, you're including the My Way package.
All right. Well, to be fair, I don't know how like when I watch old Joshi, half the time I just skip to the match.
Yeah, well, you skip the entrances half the time as well.
Also true.
There you go.
Well,
Your opinion doesn't count.
yeah, my opinion does count because some people probably also do that. Shh. Trying to think of something else. Stop. All right. We'll watch the hair versus hair match. I think they have better. I don't think they have a better match necessarily. But the other one's shorter, so that helps.
Mm.
You should watch both. Truthfully, like if you're gonna
Yeah.
watch one, then watch the other, get the full picture of like Julia overcoming. And then you can watch the third one, the other main event, but
Yeah.
I don't really care about that. And while it's not the greatest match in Stardom history, depending where they're coming from, I think Mercedes and Mayu, Mercedes and Kyrie, Mercedes and Azumi and Hazuki is always that trio.
WWE fans who are aware
Yes,
of, yeah, yeah.
because Mercedes does great in all of them.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that like is worth it. But those would be it probably.
yeah.
Um,
I would throw in Kagetsu versus Mayu Iwatani from the year-end Climax 2019. I think Kagetsu is
great
one
one.
of the easiest selling points for someone coming into Stardom for the first time. You see Kagetsu, such a complete character, so easy to understand from like an instant. Mayu, obviously one of her greatest rivals, and there's a few matches I've had where you'd be like, oh, you could pick that one, you could pick that one, but that is right when the crowd is its most fever pitch,
Yeah.
and crowd reaction really does matter. That's in a packed out Korakuen
Oh,
Hall, standing room only. Yeah,
yeah. My final recommendation is Mayu and Takumi.
the first one.
Well, you need to see the first one to appreciate the second one,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion. So yes, the first one. The first one's also with the crowd, so that helps.
Mm.
Obviously, I love the second one. Love the second one, but you need to see the first one to have
Yes.
appreciation for that second one. How
Yep.
Mayu is different in the match,
Mm.
but those are both brutal. They're both
Yep.
physical. You don't need to know much about that first one. It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
I mean, tell the Sari thing if you want. That's a fun little tidbit, but yeah, I think those are all the matches. There's a lot. Mayu and Kagetsu, you can pretty much pick her a lot of their matches 2019, 2018.
Yeah.
I think both of those work. I think that's it because I don't want to hit too story driven.
It's interesting because at the same time, like story driven
But
can be
that's so important for
beneficial to
Stardom.
draw in a WWE AEW fan. Because I was looking at the two matches I was considering and I was hesitant on are the Queen's Quest Oedo Tai big matches. So the
Yeah,
Gauntlet match from
I
2018
thought about that
and the
too.
cage match. The Gauntlet match I love because it's a self-contained story.
It's one of my
Like
favorite matches
you
ever.
get, they're fantastic matches and like they tell the story within the confines of the match. Very clear face heel dynamic, which you don't always get in Stardom. Like you showed them Shuri versus Momo. Who am I meant to cheer for? Says the person who's only ever watched Western wrestling. These ones have very clear, Queen's Quest are the good people, Oedo ties the bad people.
Sure.
My hesitancy with the Gauntlet match is it is a long match, and I
Yeah.
typically wouldn't suggest such a long match for a introduction. But if they are story driven,
Yeah.
you get that without having to pull out
Story.
a
Yeah.
20-page. You don't have to find one of my articles on WrestleN, which explains it in like 6,000 words. You can just be
Sure.
like, watch this match, you'll understand as it's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard because story is so important to Stardom. So I think we probably named at least every match you could possibly think of that doesn't necessarily need a little bit of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of why I do like to stay away now that I'm sitting here from Julia Tam completely because there's so many things that go into that. Like,
Yeah.
for example, my appreciation for that feud comes from how we got to that feud. And I don't know if that's how I want to start someone off on.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Like, obviously, my appreciation isn't necessarily like it's the most unfortunate situation humanly possible. But they're able to create something from it, and it's like that is Stardom. I think that's it though. I think the Away of Time match, Queen's Quest Away of Time matches are good options if you're trying to get a little story in there. Um,
Cage is good because it's self-contained, it's shorter, and you've got
Yeah.
the spectacle of a cage match.
Yeah.
And it's probably
Yeah.
more accessible. But I always like to shout out that 2018
Yeah.
Gauntlet match.
Thank you for doing so, because that was the first thing that popped into my mind earlier
You
when
get
I was going through
Kagetsu, you
it.
get Io Shirai,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hana
You get
Kimura.
young Tam, which is
Yeah,
always, if you know who Tam is at all, it's like, who the hell are
yeah.
you? But I think those are the best options. If you're looking for a story match that after like one or two, may I offer you a Risa versus Tam? I will always offer that one. I think everyone should just see Arisa because the. All right, we're done. This has been almost 2 hours. I'm done. I'm done. Trent's sick. I'm tired. Hope everyone enjoyed the episode. Trent, where can they find you? What do you have going on?
You can no longer find me in Japan, unfortunately. You have to stalk me in Australia. But you can find me on Twitter/X at OneUpCulture. I don't have anything planned at this stage. There's, some things in the pipeline that'll get announced at a later date. Exciting things, but sort of not quite at the announcement stage yet. So I guess just stay tuned to my Twitter for when that stuff happens.
Yeah, follow me at Scotty Wrestling on Twitter. Check the 5-Star Joshi show every week. Talk everything going on in Joshi. Check out Ring Post Radio right here on Count Podcast Network. In terms of writing, I got nothing. Not that I don't have ideas. I just I'm very. I have been in a spell writing for over a year now, and I just isn't going away. Someday maybe, but some some exciting things come eventually. It's a busy time of the year. Magic can happen, hopefully. So, like you said, like Trent said, follow Twitter at Scott Eat Wrestling. Easiest way to find those things. Well, that's it for the Stardom Road Podcast. We'll be back next time talking Stardom in America, because Stardom, if you didn't know, is going to America for America Dream 2024 in the Keystone State, available on Triller TV, which broke my heart. But we will be covering the shows that they've done in America all in one episode. We were going to stretch it to 2, and then we said no one wants to do that. I don't want to watch.
I needed time to work on my accent.
Oh Jesus, I'm worried about that. But this was Stardom Road for Trent. I'm Scott. Until next time, see ya.